Our final speaker is a recent graduate of UVA and a fixture of Ellwood Avenue on the corner, where he operates his nonprofit student startup lab called HackCville. With his focus on student entrepreneurship, creativity, and individuality, this visionary makes hacks college like it's nobody's business. To wrap up TEDxUVA, please give it up for Mr. Spencer Ingram.
Thank you. And I know we're all looking forward to the reception, so this will be a short talk about a big idea. The 21st century college. When I came to school at UVA in 2003, I had no idea what college was for. And I just knew that I was a science nerd, and I had this expectation that school was going to be a Mythbusters level of awesome. But it was not awesome. And it was very rigid. And it was solving problem sets and not problems. So in 2005, I dropped out of college. And for the first time, I took responsibility for my education. Now, I'm not conflating dropping out with taking responsibility, but rather the responsibility that Alan Webb talked about this morning. So I want to pause for a second and explain that hacking is a creative force. I think it gets a negative connotation. But rather, hacking is taking and leveraging the assets. You've heard that once today. The assets that you may not recognize as assets when you first look at them. And turning them into the forces to shortcut or hack your way to often unknown outcomes. And you're going to need this tool set, this mentality of hacking, because you're up against the incumbent culture. This is the culture that says college follows high school, careers follow college, and if you're not in college, then something must be wrong. But the reality here is that for the 21st century college, it's this 21st century student, and that's you today. And you're a unique bunch. I know I work with a lot of you, and you've grown up. This is the first year, right? This marks the first year that students born in the 90s will graduate from college. And you've grown up with unparalleled access to knowledge, creative tools, and a powerful internet that lets you disseminate your creativity. So, who here has been jamming on the Macklemore album, right? Yeah, it's dope. And it also has 260 million views on YouTube and no record label. That's your 21st century student. So you're in the best position today to change that incumbent culture into one that values exploration. This is, and again, to Alan's point this morning, an education that never ends. It has no path, no map. And it values the person. I would say that Dean Groves most certainly values the person. This is an a la carte education. This is one where you, by exploration, and in and outside of college, you should be able to explore, take gap years, and try things on, do a little bit of social stitching along the way. But I also understand that cultures is very tough to change. But I have good news. And the good news is that you don't need permission. So today I'm going to give you the toolkit and a place, a space, an example of how we are changing and creating this hacker culture. So the first is that it is okay to fail. In class, you have midterms and exams, and not a lot of wiggle room. But much more like physics, we heard today, you should be able to disregard the traditional. You should be able to throw some of that out, and you should be able to fail regularly, quickly, often. And that failure is education. The second is this should be inclusive, and that should be self-explanatory. 3, coaching. This is the career services you wish you had if it was filled with the people doing the things that you have interest in. So this is coaching inside and outside of academia. And the coaching is important, and you've heard this again today, that it's about being reflective. Reflective on what you're learning, and it creates accountability. So the fourth and final one, and this is important, is that it's autonomous from the institution. And this is not to say that schools can't do this, but that the spaces, the hacker culture, the students, the things that you put together through these toolkits should be removed from the operations, and the authority of the school. So what does this look like? Well, for the last year, we've been building this here at UVA, and most appropriately, it's called HackCville. And this is a space for creative, entrepreneurial students to come and collide with other like-minded students and members from the community. Many of these other members, like myself, had dropped out. I did return to UVA. I'm a double who, but it was the return and the time away and in between that changed my perspective on education. So we took this house above a Coops. There's, in fact, a house above Coops. And we turned it into a center of gravity for student entrepreneurship. We gave students a license to tinker, a license to fail. And cross-discipline collaboration happened because students were compelled to explore, not because curriculum told them to. Here's another shot of the house. And I'm always asked about metrics. How do we know how well we're doing? Well, if you make what you measure, and we don't know exactly what we're making, we just don't measure it. And this is good because it leads us to a story. And the story this year, and I expect it to change every year, but the story this year is that students have earned over $50,000. They've won numerous competitions. They've been accepted to national accelerators. And next week, 4 teams will go to a final round of an investment challenge for up to $750,000. We have 2 students teaching 11,000 other students from other schools in a free online course that is producing homework assignments for a software they're also writing that is allowing an open source access to the search and implementation of algorithms. We have another team working to help improve the lives of refugees in Charlottesville. Charlottesville is one of the 20 International Refugee Committee locations in the country. These are people that go through hell, and then they arrive here and get minimum wage jobs. Their mission is to make that a much better life experience here in Charlottesville. Then finally, we have 2 entrepreneurs in residence that will be joining us this year because the demand from students is so much so that I can't keep up with you. And this is compelling evidence that we are solving the cultural problem. So this is an invitation to you, the 21st century student, and to institutions to explore hacker culture and these hacker spaces as experiential education, as a place to get out from underneath of some of that bureaucracy. I cautioned myself I wasn't going to say that today, but we know that that's true. And because we're delving out $100 billion in federal aid a year for college, which is adding up to $1 trillion in debt. So this is a big idea for a very big market. And I think that these hacker spaces, this culture, this change from the incumbent culture to a culture of exploration is one that's going to be needed in order to create the 21st century college experience. So with that, I thank you and start hacking.